Hello there and welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be having a look at the fourth film in the Resident Evil franchise, Resident Evil Afterlife today. I mean, say what you will about these movies, whether you like them or you don't, or you just don't even care. You cannot, I mean, these films were successful, right? These films were... They did do money. They did do well. I mean, I think this film had a budget of around 60 million, and I think it made upwards of sort of 300 million. So it did. This done all right for itself, Resident Evil Afterlife. So I will get into the film today, as you can probably tell by my whole demeanour. It's not great, but we'll delve into it today and what I liked, didn't like about the movie, and what I thought of it. Paul W.S. Anderson returns this time to direct. It's quite incredible that initially they were not even going to do a fourth film, let alone a fifth of six. But such was the success of Extinction, the producers and the studio, like with all things, decided to keep going. You know, when something's successful, if it's making money, do another one, do another one, do another one. When this film came out, it's very much at the height of the 3D boom that was happening with a lot of the motion pictures that come out, with much largely thanks to sort of James Cameron's Avatar. So the whole 3D gimmick was pretty much in vogue here. It was pretty much sort of what this film plays into. Every film that came out around that period had the 3D gimmick, didn't it? If you remember, you had like Jackass 3D, things like that, and Resident Evil was no exception. Milla Jovovich returns here as always, does Ali Larter as Claire, and we get Wentworth Miller as Chris Redfield. Only four movies in, and we get like one of, if not the main protagonist from the game. You know, so we only four in, and we get Chris Redfield, right? Okay. So let's get, I'd say, Chris along with Leon S. Kennedy, probably the top two, aren't they? Claire, Jill, obviously, but you know, only four movies in, we're actually getting some more characters now. Hallelujah, we're actually getting some characters from the game. So let's get into it today and see what I thought of Resident Evil Afterlife. So the film opens with this thumping hard drum track right away. Lots of slow-mo in this film. The film opens with such shot of people walking around in like the rain in like Japan with umbrellas. Get it? Umbrellas. Then this random girl turns into a zombie, and then we get yet another opening monologue by Alice. And I tell you, I am sick of these opening monologues. I am even at this point, I'd had enough. I'd really had enough. Just recounting everything that's happened so far. I mean, just how the virus got out, yada, yada, yada. We know. You know, if you haven't seen any of the other films, it's unlikely. I mean, it's not even really important at this point. So we meet Wesker, who is basically the whole film. The guy who plays him, I think his name is Shawn Roberts. He's doing like his very best Hugo Weaving, Agent Smith impersonation. It really does fail. He's basically just copying Agent Smith. He's basically just copying sort of Hugo Weaving's whole demeanour and the way Agent Smith is in The Matrix, and this is all he's doing here. He's just playing, like I say, a very, very poor Agent Smith. It just pales in comparison. He's like in this underground base and lost contact with some of his snipers and security. And I mean, the film is so loud. It is so loud. If you remember at the end of Extinction, it ended with Alice saying, "We're going to come and get you." And this is sort of where the film does start. When I talk about loud, it's just the overall music, the look, the presentation. There's nothing subtle about this movie. We meet Alice, who has like samurai swords now and ninja stars. I mean, why not, right? Why not have some ninja stars? Remember in the game, shotgun, green herbs, ammo. Oh yeah, that's right, ninja stars in my inventory. Now, you know, as I say, lots of slow-mo here to show how badass she is, still using her force powers to create like a shockwave. I mean, at least with these films, they do more often than not always pick up, like I mentioned, immediately where the last film ended. At least they do. There's none of this sort of, and wait, where are we? Usually, by and large, these films pick up exactly where the last film ended. So they do have that going for them. Her and her clones attacking the umbrellas like HQ, basically. I know like young males probably find the whole film so cool with the ninja stars, the slow-mo, how rad she looks, and the kung fu, and the zombies, and the guns. My biggest gripe, much like Rey in the Star Wars sequels, is you never fear for Alice. You never, ever fear for Alice. There's never any trouble, like, you know, that she's going to be in any bother whatsoever. You know, whatever comes away now, now she's with clones as well, and there's loads of her. There's even less reason to be concerned for her safety, because if there's not only is she going in team-handed, she's going with clones who are obviously got the same skills that she has. So what is the problem? You know, why should I even be fearful of this? Because she's just going to kick their ass, basically, which, okay, that's cool enough. But I want to have a bit of, like, connection with the character. I'd like to be a bit fearful that something might happen to her. No, none of that happens. The whole film is basically just Paul Anderson seeing how many Matrix-esque type sequences he can do. This is basically all it is. It's basically just, without the Matrix, the way the film's shot and the style of it wouldn't be like that. I say we got an Agent Smith clone, we got the way the action sequences are shot. Just the whole thing is just Matrix. I mean, bearing in mind that was done years before, so nothing has sort of progressed, you know, in terms of like filmmaking. So Wesker escapes in like this aircraft, nukes the base and half the city with it. Real Alice comes up behind him and he injects her like with like this serum. While this scuffle and everything is going on, Wesker just totally forgets about just one small thing while he's escaping. Like they're having this scuffle on the plane. He flew the plane out, though she catches him. They have like this scuffle, and Wesker just for some reason forgets about, oh, I don't know, flying the plane. He just, you know, so it crashes, and Alice escapes because she is like Alice, you know, she can survive this. Cut to 6 months later, and the film is all about Alaska being like this haven for survivors. So randomly, she is flying like this little biplane, right? This little bid plane. She's got this plane that she always manages to get a vehicle from somewhere. No problems, and she's looking for Arcadia and survivors. Finds this place where loads of planes and aircrafts are, including the chopper that Claire and the others stole at the end of the last movie, which sort of makes sense because they were going to find this haven, and so that does sort of follow on from when the previous film ended. I do believe this movie is the best cinematography we've seen up to this point in the franchise, and I love how she has never, like I say, she has her makeup done and her digital portable camera fully charged to record a video, with so she can do these diary things. You know, it's all charged, she's got her makeup done, you know, it's an apocalypse, she's just chilling out. You know, must make sure your makeup's done and everything. And so she's got this camera fully charged, every little things like this. So she keeps doing these diaries. She finds Claire who's lost her memory and goes to attack her and takes off with her in the plane. The film does include some sort of mind control devices that are used in sort of the game Resident Evil 5. So it gets to LA and find these survivors on the roof. I mean, you can always say, you know, one thing you can say about these movies for the bulk of them is that they are very fast paced. I think that's why a lot of people find these entertaining. I say especially probably teenagers. They probably, which I know I fully get, is where the films where their target audience is. But as I say, that is one of the saving graces with these films. They are fast paced. It's not like you're sitting there bored all the time, because there is a lot to be said about these movies, whether you like them or not. There is a lot to say about them. So, I mean, like I say, you can always say so she goes to land on the roof, even have a scene of one of them pushing like a cage, and if you look at this scene where one of them is pushing this thing, it's much like how you would push something in the game. I'm not sure if that was done deliberately, but it does look very reminiscent of like when you would push sort of a step ladder or a box or something in the games. So they land. Claire is all off and bitchy at this point, doesn't want to know anyone. Always funny with these survivors she encounters. They always fit into like a demographic or represent a certain stereotype. We have a geeky girl, a military guy, a basketball star, a movie producer. And what gets me is, how did these people, I know they survived somehow, but how did they all end up together? Do you know what I mean? How was it this lot that ended up together? You know, it's such a weird mishmash of people. How they got there is anyone's guess. I love how Luther hasn't got like a mark on him, and his beard is perfectly trimmed, much like Alice's makeup. And if you look at Luther, his beard's perfect. He hasn't got a mark on him. He doesn't look like he looks like he's been sleeping fine. You wouldn't think it was an apocalypse, honestly, with the way these people are looking. They look like probably the best shape of their life and the best looking they've ever been. So, like I say, I love how he got his priorities right in the song. Worth mentioning that the CGI sky is very over the top as well, which doesn't quite work with the film. So we learn that Arcadia is a ship and they have Chris locked up there. I mean, so we have Claire with memory loss, Jill has disappeared, and Chris is locked up. This is how they're treating the characters from the Resident Evil game. One's got memory loss, one's in a cage and can't get out, and Jill's just disappeared. This is how they treat the character. If you watch, and it gets worse as the films go on, but this is how they treat when they get the characters from the game. They don't know what to do with them. They have no idea what to do with them. It's like, let's just make Milla Jovovich do as many little cool slow-mo action scenes as possible. Forget about the characters from the game. Forget about them completely, because they're just they're not even in the same league as Alice, right? Just do it really. I mean, way to go and treat the characters from the franchise with dignity and respect. They won't let Chris out of this cage because he has the eyes of a killer or something like that. Surely, all the more reason to let him out then, isn't it? To aid him so he can aid you with the zombies or help or something. If he's got the eyes of a killer, it means he knows his stuff. Surely he could help. So Alice and Luther strike up a bond, and God knows what everyone else is doing at this point in the movie. So out of nowhere, we get the Executioner Axeman from Resident Evil 5 walking down the street towards the prison, which come out of nowhere, but don't get me wrong, it's cool to see, and it does look great. It looks the part. Talking of the games, it's worth mentioning that the zombies now have the Resident Evil 4-5 thing going on with their mouths and what happens, and the virus and when they changed it with Resident Evil 4 and the way the zombies were portrayed. They do have this going on in this movie. So they let Chris out, as he says he knows a way out if the zombies are attacking. And I love how they make a point that Chris and Claire are brother and sister, but it doesn't get fleshed out. It doesn't get fleshed out at all. They just, Claire, and it's like, he's my brother. That's it. That's the end of it. No backstory, how they grew up, nothing. Nothing. Doesn't get fleshed out until, what the hell are the chances? And that's another thing. What are the chances of them actually meeting like that? Out of all the people with the whole apocalypse thing going on, brother and sister, they just happen to run into each other. Go figure. What a coincidence. So it really does annoy him. So Alice and Chris and the actress girl try, reach the armory. Chris says they take the UPV vehicle to escape. Funny how they have been safe all this time. Then as soon as Alice turns up, then the shit hits the fan. Right, they've been safe. They've been sort of chilling out this whole time. As soon as Alice gets here, the zombies are coming in. Everything's kicking off, right? I love how they needed Chris to tell them to check all the security doors and to take the vehicle to escape. They had to let Chris tell them that, couldn't they? Surely they would have looked around all the lockers and the security doors and everything else to see if there was any vehicle supplies or anything at all. I mean, okay, I think it's implied that Chris knew where stuff was or he could get into stuff. But even still, you think they would... It's like they didn't even speak to Chris at all the whole time he was sort of locked up. They only let him out now. Now, if they could have done all of this earlier, if they'd have just given Chris a chance, but no, they didn't like his eyes because he had the eyes of a killer. Oh my God. The film producer kills one of the survivors and takes Alice's plane. Just so happens to know. I mean, he's a film producer, but he just so happens to know how to fly a plane. How he got to the top of the building so fast, I have no idea. So we have a cliche slow-mo gun throw to Alice, which keeps happening in these movies. There's always one of the characters that does a really slow-mo gun toss to Alice, and then doing then Alice does this bungee off the roof down to the ground, I might add. In between all this, you have Luther doing these massive slow-mo jumps with the wings of a plane and then a gate. It just goes on and on. So they take their chances down sewers, and Axe Guy turns up. First thing she does is kick him. Right, so we're going into the whole, there's zombies here, let's have a kung fu fight, right? Even Claire does this backflip off a wall at one point. They stray from the game so much, and it's look kids, remember this enemy? Remember this thing from the game? Well, here they are. And it's just, but I don't want to see, it's with the end of, the ending of Apocalypse, I don't want to see anybody having fisticuffs with the nemesis. Do you know what I mean? And it's a bit like here, why do we have to always resort to sort of kung fu and martial arts? When it's a Resident, I know in the games there is some fisticuffs and fights in it, but it's not to the extent that it's done in these movies. Do you know what I mean? So just really, they put the things in from the game, but they, like I said, they don't know what to do with them or how to handle it. So it just cuts to them on this ship, right? It just cuts to them on the ship. Luther gets taken by the zombies. So they find 2,000 survivors apparently on board. And turns out the whole thing, it's Umbrella who hijacked Claire at the beach and holding these people there so they can sort of experiment on them. So it's the whole thing is sort of Umbrella luring these people in to sort of, you know, so they can aid them, like use them as sort of guinea pigs, basically. Alice finds Kmart from the previous movie. Everything is way too white here and way too clean. It looks, like I say again, it looks like a program from the Matrix or something. It's another Matrix-esque type shot, because you know, like when Morpheus and Neo go into the Matrix the first time and everything's like super white. It's like here. I mean, I understand it's probably it's a laboratory and testing zone, but it's just, you just can't help but think of the Matrix. So Alice finds Wesker. The evil movie producer guy is now under his control for some reason, and Wesker wants to use Alice's blood or something to balance out the virus in his body or whatever, you know, something along them lines like that. Have to have the Resi dogs here as well for good measure. I mean, I will say the film is better. I think it's better than 2 and 3. I will give it that, but it's not as good as 1. In my opinion. So Chris and Claire joining in the fight, heavy drum track as mentioned earlier, lots of bullet time and things like that going on. We get another, like I say, a slow-mo gun toss to Alice. Basically Chris and Claire kill Wesker after Alice has done sort of all the hard work, and then they sort of take the glory, because Alice sort of is doing the beatdown on Wesker, and then Chris and Claire just come in and just get the finishing blow. So Wesker takes off in yet another jet and going to purge that facility too. So he does basically the same thing that he does at the start of the movie. He does like flying away and wanting to blow things. Like his thing in this is flying away and blowing things up. That's Wesker's like sort of trademark here for some reason. Though Alice had put the device on his jet, Luther turns. Like Alice has put the device on Wesker's jet that he's flying, so that blows up. The build light doesn't blow up what he wanted to blow up. So Luther turns up, and so Luther didn't die. Alice broadcasts from the Arcadia, right, offering shelter and food. What food? Where's the food? I understand the shelter bit. Why are you assuming there's food? Is it meant? It might be mentioned at one point. Maybe Kmart says they've been feeding us really well. I don't know, but she says we got shelter and food. I didn't see any food, so. They're going to get there. People are going to get, yeah, there's the shelter. Great, we're dry. But where's all the food? I didn't see any food around. So then loads of planes approach, and Alice says it's trouble, and that's the end of the movie. Aside from a brief cameo from Jill in a Resident Evil 5 outfit and blonde hair, which is quite cool, you know, and that sets up the next movie. The end, I'd say not the worst. I'd say that honour goes to 2 and 3. I think 2 and 3... up to this point, if you're just summing up the film so far, as I mentioned, I think 2 and 3 are by and large the worst. 2 probably being the worst, 3 not far behind it. This one isn't as bad, probably maybe largely to do with Paul W.S. Anderson returning as director, but 1, I should say, you can be viewed, like I said it many times, it's like a guilty pleasure. This film, you know, it is what it is, but I do have, as you can probably tell from this review, I do have a lot of problems with it. And I say, not talking about this movie, not a lot happens in it. Really, not a lot happens in it. And the action scenes, though, do look great. It's the lack of context and substance that I have a problem with. Which lets these films down, and some plot holes that do sort of hang over the movie that just ruins it. So that's sort of my take on Resident Evil Afterlife. I will finish off the Resident Evil box set. I will get the other 2 done in Retribution and the final chapter, but not bad, you know. Well, it's bad, Resident Evil Afterlife. It's not as bad as Extinction Apocalypse, but it's still quite bad. So hope you enjoyed the review. If you've seen Resident Evil Afterlife, let me know what you thought of it. Maybe you enjoy the movie, and if you do, good for you. But it's just quite a few niggles I have with the film. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.